Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. It's just a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. Let's begin with these auspicious verses from the King of Prayers. Lai ke dan lu dan no jing ge dru bun da dan mi ye ge nan dan ro wa gun ji dra na chi tsam ba dan je ge du da gi ji den do. In the language of gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. And from Atisha's lamp, from Acharya Atisha's lamp from the path for the path to enlightenment, understand there are persons of three capacities: small, medium, and supreme. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. So, what does it mean when it says there are these beings of supreme capacity? Those supreme capacity beings are those beings who've entered into the Mahayana, who've generated this mind that we're talking about week after week after week, called Bodhicitta. And this verse that Rinpoche repeated over and over and over again before classes, he would say this over and over again. Understand there are persons of three capacities: small, medium, and supreme. I shall write clearly to identify their individual characteristics. Because he told us, he showed us how this small stanza encompassed everything that the Buddha taught. And Arya Nagarjuna also agrees. He says there are those pathways to achieve high status and certain goodness. So when we look at the teachings for beings of small capacity, this shows us, these teachings show us how to achieve high status, a fortunate rebirth in our future lives. And when we look at the teachings for beings of medium capacity, these teachings show us how to achieve the first part of certain goodness that Arya Nagarjuna is talking about, which is liberation, an individual liberation, a freedom from cyclic existence, an abiding nirvana, how one would eject oneself out of cyclic existence. And this is shown in the teachings for beings of medium capacity. And under the category of certain goodness, according to Arya Nagarjuna, there are two headings. First, the heading of an individual liberation, and then the certain goodness, which is Buddhahood. So the teachings for beings of great capacity show us how to achieve the certain goodness of Buddhahood. So the teachings for beings of three capacity show one how to achieve, first with the teachings of small capacity, a fortunate rebirth in the higher realms of cyclic existence, fortunate, a good basis from which to practice. And the teachings for beings of medium capacity show us how to get out of cyclic existence for ourselves. And the teachings for beings of great capacity show us how to become a fully enlightened Buddha. So when we refer to these teachings, and we're referring to them in terms of the Mahayana track, the Mahayana vehicle, because this is a teaching of the great vehicle, the Mahayana, we call these pathways, or we call these capacities, teachings that are shared in common with when we are referring to the small and medium scope, because they are necessary to practice in order to realize the great scope, the great capacity. So we say the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity and the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, because these teachings serve as a foundation for the teachings for beings of great capacity, those supreme teachings. One cannot achieve a supreme mind, this mind that wishes to free every single sentient being in the universe called Bodhicitta, without the mental bases that are acquired through the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity. So when we look at this progression, we see that we have to realize how to achieve high status. Then we have to realize how to achieve the lower level of certain goodness in order to achieve the highest level of certain goodness, which is complete Buddhahood. So Lord Atisha shows us these pathways which lead to these specific destinations, as Arya Nagarjuna speaks about the pathways that lead to high status, such as the 16 virtues and so forth. So we can look at that at another time, but we're so fortunate to be able to have a complete path, to be able to have all of the teachings that the Buddha presented in a way that will show us how to achieve exactly what the Buddha achieved. Nothing less than what the Buddha achieved, because we all have this potential to achieve what the Buddha achieved. So because this is a great vehicle teaching, because this is a Mahayana teaching, this is a teaching for children of the conquerors, for bodhisattvas, let's try in our best way possible to set, even if it's contrived, even if we're just making it up, even if we don't believe it in the least, the more we kind of remind our minds what makes sense, the more they will start to make sense. And we will become convinced that it makes sense for us to develop a mind of bodhicitta. It isn't something that's just a great idea. It's something that makes sense more than anything that we've ever kind of come to the conclusion of. So doing things like we're doing right now by saying to ourselves, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, we're putting this kind of imprint in our mind of this supreme capacity that we will become. We will become, one of the most important beings in the universe the moment we generate this mind, because we will become a child of the conqueror. We will be like the prince who will become the king. We will be like the young sprout that will become the Buddha. And the only way that we can become the Buddha is to really generate this mind, to actually change our discrimination in relation to every single sentient being in the universe and see them all as beings that are lovable, are objects of our compassion, and as beings that we will not rest until they are happy and free and achieve the state that Buddha Shakyamuni achieved. Because that's what we're not going to settle for anything less than unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. So we will come to the conclusion that our unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment depends upon sentient beings. And we will become convinced that we want to become a Buddha only because we want to take care of sentient beings. So we will achieve our highest goal, we will achieve perfection, independence upon sentient beings, but we will only want to achieve that perfection once we become convinced of it, because it's the only way for us to take care of all sentient beings. So yes, as a byproduct, we have, suffering will never be there again, and we'll have the happiest mind in the universe. But the reason that we're doing that, once we achieve this bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva, is for the sake of other sentient beings, and knowing that that is the way, that is the secret to our own happiness. So let's set this motivation. We've been going through this week after week and learning about the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya and Arya Sangha, down through the extensive deeds lineage. We've gone over it quite a bit and dug deep into it. And according to the fifth Dalai Lama, Ngawang Losang Gyatso, the great fifth, there is nothing in the teachings of the exchanging self with others lineage, the profound view lineage, Bodhisattva Shantideva's lineage. There's nothing in there that isn't found in the 7-point cause and effect if you dig really deep and you really go deep into it. So I feel we've done a good job of going deep into the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And as we go through this equalizing, exchanging self with others practice, passed down in the profound view lineage from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Manjushri to Arya Nagarjuna, down through to Bodhisattva Shantideva, through the profound view lineage, eventually to us. As we hear these teachings, let's take a look and see if what Ngawang Losang Gyatso La, the great fifth, says is true. If we can see how these ideals that are expressed that seem so radical in the mind training tradition aren't exactly what we've been meditating on in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. Because if we make the conclusion that we must take on ourselves the task of freeing every single sentient being in the universe, and that we're going to become a Buddha for their sake in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, then we're naturally saying we're putting others' needs before our own, that we're doing this for them, that we're seeing them as a mother would her only child, who would spring into action to put that child's needs before their own. So when we look at the measure of what bodhicitta is according to the 7-point cause and effect practice, when we look at the measure according to Acharya Kamalashila's stages of meditation, we see that it's precisely that idea of just being willing to put everyone else's needs in the universe before your own, just jump and react and take care of and be kind to the same way a mother would her only child. Like a really nice mother would her only child, like the best mother in the world, the way those would feel about her only child and take care of them under any circumstances. This is the way that we're talking about. So when we look at this conclusion that we're coming to in the midst of the 7-point cause and effect, not once we've realized bodhicitta, in the midst of it, these measures of compassion and love and so forth, we can see when we're in the midst of these measures of what our love and compassion are in the 7-point cause and effect, they're basically measuring whether or not we're willing to put others' needs before our own, cherish others more than ourselves, take on others' suffering, give others happiness, giving, taking, which we think, oh, that's just the mind training practice. It's not something that's really, found in the 7-point cause and effect. But we're exchanging our kind of needs for others. And we're saying that your basis of designation, your parts, I'm going to take care of and look after as if they're more important than my parts, because that's how I really take care of my parts. Very profound conclusion, but the same conclusion is made in this other practice. And Ngawan Losang Gyatso says that it's just written in a way for the various aptitudes of different sentient beings. Some sentient beings relate in a way more so when it's put like this. And other sentient beings relate in a way when it's not as radical and it's put like that. So we'll go through this teaching on the exchanging self with others practice. We'll go through it slowly. We'll use all of the commentaries and we'll come to see, are these two things almost synonymous, equivalent? Do these two practices, once you really understand them and become good at them, do they really mean the same thing? They must mean the same thing if they're causing a specific result, because results are concordant with their causes. So you can't have a bunch of unlike causes to make a result. So this is all I'm concluding tonight, is that, if you're looking for the result bodhicitta, you have to have really specific ingredients to make a really specific meal. To make a really specific realization, you need really specific causes. Substantial causes, direct causes, indirect causes. You need cooperative conditions and so forth. All of these things need to be present, and they all have to be perfectly there for the dependent arising of bodhicitta to occur. It's dependent and it arises. So in order for that to occur, there has to be perfect causes that are put together for that to occur. And you can't say that there's these two sets of causes that are the perfect causes that are exactly what you need to make the same thing occur unless they have this equivalency. So I think this is something really profound to think about how recognizing equanimity, all sentient beings are a mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, love through the force of attraction, great compassion, altruism, and then the result of bodhicitta, how those ideas align with the idea of equalizing self with other, the downfalls of the self-cherishing attitude, the benefits of cherishing other, taking on suffering, giving happiness, exchanging self with other, meditating on the great kindness of all the different types of beings, friends, enemies, and friends, neutrals, and enemies, and then generating the altruistic intention. How do those things that sound so differently with the words I'm saying mean exactly the same thing? It's like we have to be able to see that it's just another way to say the same thing, to be able to have the result, which is one thing. There's two lineages of practice that put things in different ways that mean the same thing, according to the Great Fifth. You have to discover whether this is true or not. And they're all just put in these various different ways. But these various different ways of saying something assembles exactly the perfect causes that there can't be one missing from for the dependent arisal called bodhicitta, aspiring bodhicitta. And that's what we're talking about. I've slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. I have these three types of suffering: suffering of suffering, suffering of change, pervasive conditioned suffering. Let me recognize that every sentient being that's my mother in a previous life has fallen into. The previous I was I, so my mother before is my mother. So my mothers are suffering with the three types of suffering, just like I am. May I generate the wish to take to take on this task to free them and generate this wish so that I have it all day and night and it doesn't go away. And that's bodhicitta, wanting to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, day and night without wavering, only thinking I'm doing this movement right now for the sake of all sentient beings. I'm doing this movement right now for the sake of all sentient beings. Once one generates bodhicitta, there's not a movement made that isn't for the sake of all sentient beings if that bodhicitta is present and hasn't been lost. And it only can be lost at a very early stage in the bodhisattva's path of the perfection vehicle. So let's set this great intention, which according to Lord Maitreya and the Abhisamma is defined as, bodhicitta is defined as the altruistic intention to achieve the highest enlightenment, Buddhahood, for the sake of all sentient beings. So let's generate that mind right now. We're attending this teaching this evening to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. As Lord Atisha says, there are beings of three capacities: small, medium, and supreme. Supreme because the mind state is so vast, is so great, is so huge, because the object of observation of the compassion of this mind state and love of this mind state is every single sentient being in the universe. This is the most supreme way of thinking because it's thinking about everyone. So let's generate this idea that's so supreme, that's the entrance to the Mahayana, that makes you a conqueror's child. This supreme idea, the highest ideal. This is why Arya Nagarjuna in the commentary on the awakening mind says the highest ideal of the Mahayana. And then Lord Atisha calls it supreme capacity. So you see, supreme, highest ideal. It's all pointing at one thing: the great vehicle, the vehicle that is great, supreme capacity, the highest ideal. So we see so clearly why the names around bodhicitta are so big. The vast path, right? The bodhisattva path, the vast path, the supreme path, the great vehicle. Why is it great? Because it leads to the greatest place. Why is it great? Because the mindset is so great. The path is so vast. The path is so greatly sophisticated, so supremely sophisticated. The emptiness that the bodhisattva realizes is so sophisticated and relies upon so many reasons. The 7-point analysis of the chariot and the 4 modes of production and the 4 essentials. and the reason of dependent origination and the 20 emptinesses, 16 emptinesses, the Bodhisattva is relying on sophisticated reasoning in order to conclude that things don't intrinsically exist. So there's this supremacy in terms of it's the greatest because it's the greatest result, it's the greatest mind, and it's the greatest amount of knowledge that one can accrue or have in relation to the nature of reality. Because the bodhisattva needs to be able to tame all the varieties of beings. So he or she needs to know everything there is to know about every way to explain emptiness to everyone, and needs to know everything about the sophisticated ways to help sentient beings in relation to not just the liberating path of emptiness, but the ripening paths. And the bodhisattva has to generate clairvoyances because according to Lord Atisha, the lamp for the path to enlightenment without clairvoyance helping sentient beings is really hard. Very supremely vast because the goal is vast, the motivation is vast, the pathway is sophisticated, the pathway is supreme. It's supreme to other pathways because the result is the highest result, is the supreme result. The result is perfection. The result isn't an abiding nirvana or an incomplete state. The result is a complete perfection, the supreme, the highest level one can achieve. So this is why it's called the great vehicle, the Maha. Maha means great. Yana means vehicle. The great vehicle. It's a vehicle that goes to the greatest place that one can achieve. It's a vehicle with a motivation, which is the greatest motivation one can have, and that's to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. The greatest motivation to put others' needs before your own. When we look at the holy high beings that we look up to, we see they put others' needs before their own. So we're so fortunate to have all of these teachings that can present us with the steps that show us how to generate this mind that's necessary for us to generate in order for us to start on this pathway which only leads to Buddhahood. Once we generate this mind of enlightenment and don't lose it, we're only headed to Buddhahood. Now, one can argue with the Hira Solitary Realizer path, because according to Madhyamaka Prasangika, there's only one vehicle. Those are just vehicles that lead to Buddhahood anyway. They're just kind of like, Buddha taught an abiding nirvana for those who just maybe weren't ready to take on the full challenge and might need a little bit of a rest on the island called an abiding nirvana until he whispered in their ear and said, "You're not complete. You haven't completed all of your goals, let alone all sentient beings' goals." So we're fortunate that right from the outset, we are learning how it is to become a Buddha. But we shouldn't become arrogant because we have to realize that these teachings of the paths are called teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity for a specific reason. And those pathways, which are found in the individual liberation vehicle, in the medium scope, teachings, the Hinayana teachings, have to be realized in order to realize bodhicitta. So it's all a pathway for us to be able to achieve Buddhahood. And for us to think that, oh, well, I can just start with bodhicitta is naive. It's actually crazy, because it says over and over in the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment that when you're meditating on other beings suffering, you have to know what suffering is. And Lama Tsongkhapa says, I taught you what suffering is in the small and great scope, small and medium scope. When I explained to you about the 8 sufferings and the 6 sufferings and the 3 sufferings, that's the suffering that you need to know about yourself, that you should be disgusted with and have to get out of in order for you to be convinced that everyone else has the same problem that you want to help them with too. So we should not say, oh, well, these other practitioners, we may not, we could get this idea that, oh, we're great vehicle practitioners, but until you're a bodhisattva, you're not actually a great vehicle practitioner. And you could, with this idea of this high idea of being so much better than others, may not even realize the small scope, and these others that you're judging may actually have seen emptiness because they were diligent and not worrying about others. So we should worry about our own minds and then figure out how it is that we can help others with their minds without having arrogance, because we know that the Buddha taught all of these different ways for minds to mature. The Buddha didn't teach the Madhyamaka Prasangika straight out of the gate. The Buddha taught all these various tenets for the aptitudes of sentient beings. So we have to recognize that, yes, we're sentient beings. And no, we don't have renunciation. No, I don't day and night think the minute that I've committed any among the 10 non-virtues. The big ones are fine, but anytime I gossip a little, I don't feel like somebody has just, oh my God, I've just, you know, you know, destroyed my future life. That's not like the moment I start to say something that's not important, it doesn't like register with me immediately that I'm destroying my future life. So I haven't even realized the small scope, because a small scope practitioner would know that, would just literally be walking around terrified to commit a non-virtue because it would destroy their fortunate rebirth. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, we have to really look at what the Lam Rim is saying and look at the stages of realization that are required in order for us to have these higher things actually occur. So, and with these, this quick, equalizing self and others, the downfalls of the self-cherishing attitude, the benefits of cherishing others. The only reason we have this in a nice little package, it's not like Bodhisattva Shantideva or Lord Buddha was like, okay, the first thing you have to do is equalize. No, we're fortunate that we've had 2,500 years since Lord Buddha was in the world of meditators meditating and writing and clarifying and saying, hey, here's like cheat code in order to be able to, understand this a little bit easier. As time as we move further and way further away from the Buddha, the aptitudes of the students are less. So we require more information. But during these degenerate times, if we can get it, we can really, really get it. So it's important for us to know that if you're starting to really, this is moving you, it's going to have a whole lot of power to move you, because during these degenerate times, if it's having any effect, it's really going to have an effect on your mind. So that is what is really amazing. That these teachings, if they're resonating at all during degenerate times, during times where no one really cares about virtue and most people care about cherishing themselves, during those times, if this resonates in any way or connects with you, it means that there's some incredible imprints that you have from your previous lives that are allowing for this amazing event right now to occur, where we're talking about the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment and the foundation of all good qualities and how to summarize all of this. But because you have this amazing amount of virtue, we have access to all of these commentaries where we can see Bodhisattva Shantideva's text kind of extrapolated through various commentators. And we can look at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment and see how he explains it. Bonpo Rinpoche's explanation, where we see all of this framework start to be presented as time goes on. As we get further from the Buddha, there's more clear steps for us to be able to take to be able to realize these things, because more people have meditated on them and been able to write down things since Arya Nagarjuna came and talked about this equalizing, exchanging self with others practice, and it passed down to Bodhisattva Shantideva. Yeah, we have all of these writings of the Panchen Lamas and the Dalai Lama, the great Dalai Lamas, and we're so fortunate to have this information. So we're going to look at as much of it as we possibly can to see how it relates to everything that we've learned so far, and how it connects to the small and medium scope, and how the small and medium scope must be there in order for it to work. So if you take anything from what I talk about on Thursday nights. It's that there's no like shortcut in terms of the stages of the path. There's ways, when I say cheat code, there's ways to realize each of the stages in a very not easy way, but in a way that maybe a lot we have information that makes it easier to understand than just the coarse general information that was presented by the Buddha or by Buddha Shakyamuni, by Arya Nagarjuna. So we have this kind of extensive information that we can utilize to to touch our minds with, and just keep touching our minds with it, day after day. Read a little bit, touch your mind with this information, touch your mind with the wisdom of emptiness, touch your mind with bodhicitta. These are the two things that His Holiness the Dalai Lama says are the marks of his student. If you are my student, he says should practice the wisdom of emptiness, study the wisdom of emptiness, and study uh, bodhicitta, the union of method and wisdom. So we have our marching orders from His Holiness. These are the two things we really have to figure out. And we know that when we look at Bodhisattva Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, those don't just happen. Bodhisattva Shantideva agrees that this is graduated stages, just like Lama Tsongkhapa and Lord Atisha and all these great masters agree that we have to realize the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, have to realize that we want to definitely emerge from cyclic existence, have to realize that this cyclic existence is a disgusting prison that day and night we want out of because of the three types of suffering, the suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and the pervasive conditioned suffering that we know so well. Samsara tastes like vomit in our mouth. And the only way any of those things occur is by studying the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity. That's the only way those things occur. And once we decide that samsara tastes like vomit in our mouth, we start to look around at the people we care about and realize that they don't even know they're in this predicament. And they don't even know that all of the suffering they're having is unnecessary. They don't even know that the happiness that is really suffering they're experiencing could be perfect happiness. And then you start to recognize that in order to fulfill your own needs, a change, a shift in the mind has to take place. And in order to fulfill all other sentient beings' needs, a shift in the mind has to take place. And that shift in the mind is a shift from cherishing oneself to cherishing others. And this shift only occurs through all of this information touching your mind and touching your mind and touching your mind, making a decision that there are previous lives and there are future lives, and you want to be in the best position possible in your future life to be able to keep practicing, to not have any disconnect in your spiritual journey, and recognize that you must get out of cyclic existence because this place has nothing to offer. Even the best cheesecake you're eating in a prison. It's prison cheesecake. It's got a stamp on it that says prison you don't even see. So this is what we come to recognize for ourselves. And then that thrusts us into this idea. I've slipped and fallen into the sea of the suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother has fallen into. So we must practice all of the things that lead up to this, but we have these incredible texts to support our minds with. We have these incredible beings that say, hey, I have all of these defilements just like you. Try this out. Try this meditation out. Try and do this and see if this helps. And what I have found, now, I have not realized bodhicitta. I do not have renunciation as defined in Lama Tsongkhapa's three principal aspects of the path, day and night, seeking transcendent liberation. As I just said, I haven't realized the small scope because I don't day and night repel away from every single one of the 10 non-virtues in their subtlest level as if I was about to touch a fire. But where I am now compared to where I was before I started this journey is very, very different. And it's because the teachings work. And when you put the causes for specific results in place, Nothing but those results can happen. Those results don't necessarily have to happen in the, huge way, but a result concordant with those causes has to happen because that is the meaning of dependent origination, the infallibility, the incontrovertibility of dependent origination. If I create specific causes and conditions, there's no choice. There's no chance for the result not to happen. It's the way that karma works. It's the way that cause and effect works. As soon as the exact causes and conditions are assembled, a result occurs. As soon as the exact causes and conditions in my mind are assembled for a realization, the realization, which is a result, will occur. And that realization will also be a cause because all results are causes. And that realization will then cause me to be able to do something. And you can see how the realizations of the stages of the path allow one to have the mental basis necessary that allow you to do the next something, allow you to realize the next something. So it's so awesome that we don't have to have any kind of blind faith. We don't have to just believe. We can analyze these things and see that it makes logical sense that results are concordant in their causes, that my mind has good qualities. My mind's good qualities can grow because I've seen qualities grow already in my mind. I know the alphabet. I already know how to speak. I've seen qualities grow. I was taught about not being so selfish as a child, and that lessened a little in the sandbox, a little. So my quality, I've already seen that crappy qualities of my mind can go down a little, and good qualities in my mind can go up a little. So why couldn't they go up a lot? Why couldn't they go up the most? Why couldn't they go up the mostest to perfection? Amazing, right? So now let's imagine all the beings in the space in front of us who've realized this, all the enlightened beings, all the Buddhas in the space in front of us, imagining His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, of course, Buddha Shakyamuni, imagining Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, my root teacher, and all the other enlightened teachers we're so fortunate to have in our world, the beings of the extensive deeds lineage, profound view lineage, the lineage of blessings, all of the incredible lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, the Nyingma Kagyu Sakya, Galupa, Putang, Jonang, Shelung, all of the amazing lineages in the Bon tradition within Tibetan Buddhism. Now we're saying the Bon tradition, we're including within it because there are a lot of commonalities. Now the Bon tradition is studying more Madhyamaka Prasangika philosophy. So we have all these incredible traditions and these masters. And just imagine that all of the highest Yoga Tantra, Performance Tantra, Action Tantra, 35 Buddhas, all the protectors are, all these beings are in the space in front of us. Imagine that on every atom, there's a merit field in the space in front of you. So there's just trillions and trillions of merit fields in the space in front of you. All of these enlightened beings looking into your eyes the way that we said, like a mother looks at her only child. Perfect love, perfect compassion, perfect skillful means, perfect power, perfect wisdom. These are the qualities of the beings we're imagining in the space in front of us. These are the qualities that we will possess as soon as we have the perfect causes and conditions to have those qualities emerge. The Om He Dharma He Tu Pravava He Tum Tesham Tathagata Yavada Tesham Jayo Naroda Ivam Vadi Mahashramana Svaha. All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of causes as well are taught by the great seer. So if we want to stop causes for suffering, we learn how to do that. We want to make the causes for happiness, then we learn how to do that. And it's that simple. This isn't something that we have to just have faith in, as I said. So imagine those beings in the space in front of us who discovered these things in dependence upon logic and reasoning, not on some woo-woo thing, and then they were blessed with a stick on their head and became enlightened. No, they created perfect causes and conditions, and the infallibility of dependent origination occurred. The incontrovertibility of dependent origination occurred. Those beings couldn't have not become Buddhas. They had to become Buddhas because the causes were there for them to become Buddhas. Just like when we become a Buddha, we won't have a choice but not to become a Buddha because we will have the concordant causes for the result Buddha to be there. And there won't be anything for us to do but to become a Buddha. We won't have a choice because we will have assembled all of the things. Chocolate milk didn't have a choice once you put milk and chocolate into it and stirred it. You have chocolate milk. You couldn't, it couldn't be juice. It couldn't be orange juice. You didn't assemble the perfect causes for orange juice. The infallibility of dependent origination. The orange juice arose in dependence upon, I mean, the milk arose in dependence upon the causes of putting milk and chocolate together, and then you had chocolate milk. You never got anything but chocolate milk out of that concoction because of the infallibility of cause and effect. And one has to realize within the realization of emptiness the infallibility of cause and effect. Without realizing the infallibility of cause and effect, and then thinking you've realized emptiness, you've realized nihilism. And without realizing emptiness, and you only realize the infallibility of cause and effect, then you will realize absolutism, and you will not be in the middle, and you will have fallen to one of the two extremes because of not having perfectly understood emptiness is the meaning of dependent arising. Wow. Yeah. So these beings have realized that, emptiness is the meaning of dependent arising, and dependent arising is the middle way. Therefore, emptiness is the middle way. Dependent arising has two parts, dependent and arising. Dependent means that it is not substantially existent, it is not independent, and arising means that it is not non-existent because it arises. So we see the extremes of absolutism and nihilism actually smashed by the word dependent origination. So these beings have realized this. So now imagine you bring every single sentient being in the universe to share this gift with. These beings in front of us freely give this to us. This emptiness is the meaning of dependent origination talk, and that there's liberating and ripening paths that, when put together perfectly, will infallibility, there will be nothing else but for Buddhahood to occur. So you said, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Invite all friends, neutrals, enemies here to share this gift with. We know when we study Bodhicitta, all sentient beings are our mother. Some of them are very confused at the present moment. And when we see that confusion, instead of reacting with anger, we should react with love and compassion. So let's bring those sentient beings here. Hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods. And eventually, when we become a Buddha, we'll be able to connect with each and every one of them. In the beginning of class, I read in the language of gods, nagas, and yaksas, etc., from the King of Aspiration prayers. May I proclaim the Dharma proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. And here, this is referring to the Buddha's ability to speak in the language of all beings, the Buddha's ability to send a body to each and every single sentient being in the universe, if it's what that sentient being needs in order to evolve and move closer to Buddhahood. Because Buddhas are in the business of making Buddhas, Bodhisattvas are in the business of making Buddhas, themselves Buddhas and others Buddhas. So just imagine that you're getting a jump start on your ability to help everyone. You're just trying to make your mind kinder. You're trying to just loosen the self-cherishing attitude a little bit, trying to loosen the lack of compassion, trying to loosen the lack of love, and trying to make it a little more love, a little more compassion to the point where it's perfect. A little more, a little more. Create the cause for a little more. And then create the thing which abandons the self-cherishing a little more. Cause for cherishing others a little more, and the thing that abandons the self-cherishing, the reasons why it makes no sense a little more. And then these two will then make you come to the conclusion that one needs to cherish others. So now we've brought all the beings in the universe here, and we talked a little bit about emptiness just a moment ago. So primarily I've been speaking about the liberating paths, the paths of the small scope and the medium scope of renunciation and, the desire to have a high status rebirth and abandonment of non-virtues, and then talking about bodhicitta and the great scope, talking about all these different qualities that have to occur. These are all the ripening paths that Bodhisattva Shantideva agrees have to occur. I was meant to say that before. We see in the beginning of the text that all these things have to be cleared away. The virtues have to be engaged in, the ripening paths have to be engaged in order to clear the way to be able to see emptiness as a bodhisattva. So we've talked about the ripening paths that are necessary. Now, the liberating path, the only liberating path is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And it's a very small eye of a needle that one goes through. The object of negation, of emptiness, is very specific. And it doesn't just mean something general when we say emptiness of intrinsic existence. And it doesn't mean things don't exist. It doesn't mean that the self, this Jeff that's talking to you right now, doesn't exist. This is a big misperception. It doesn't mean that the Buddha is saying that, hey, nothing exists. It just kind of seems like it does. And if you realize this, then you're enlightened. The Buddha didn't say that. The Buddha says that all of these things exist, that you agree exist. Rabbits with horns don't exist. The world, the conventional world, doesn't agree. A rabbit with horns doesn't exist. Rabbits exist. Cars exist. Houses exist. Jeff exists. The person Jeff exists. So the Buddha never came to say these things don't exist. So it says there's no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. He's talking about the five aggregates. The Buddha would never say that the five aggregates don't exist because I'm right here with them, talking to you. And I possess five aggregates, and they must exist. So the Buddha is not saying here that the five aggregates don't exist and the self doesn't exist. So this is the first thing you have to know about emptiness, is that emptiness does not mean nothingness. If you think emptiness means nothingness, this is a nihilistic view. The Travaka view, the nihilists posit this for a long time ago and will continue to posit. Science is kind of like a nihilist tradition in a lot of ways. So this is not the profound, peaceful, elaboration-free, clear light thing, non-composite, the nectar-like Dharma that the Buddha realized and said that finding no one who can fathom this teaching in silence, I'll go to the woods. The Buddha didn't say that about some silly idea that nothing exists or everything is just my imagination. The Buddha has said that there's something really specific about everything that is your imagination. Everything's not your imagination, but there's something specific about everything that you're imagining, that you're superimposing, which isn't true, which doesn't tally with reality. And when you subject everything that you think has a certain status that you're superimposing to what's called ultimate analysis, you'll find out that this thing that you're imagining about everything, this thing that you're superimposing about everything, isn't true. But you won't find, when you subject all of these things to ultimate analysis, you aren't going to find that these things don't exist. You're only going to find that the mode of existence that naturally appears, which is objective existence, existence right within the object, intrinsic existence, existence that's separate from mere imputation, separate from a designating consciousness, some sort of independent existence. So this independent existence that's separate from the designating consciousness is the object of negation of emptiness. Independent, intrinsic existence, true establishment, existence right within the object itself, separate from a designating consciousness, is what the Buddha is saying isn't true. The Buddha is saying that's a superimposition that we're making. It's appearing to us to be true, and we're apprehending it to be true. Intrinsic existence is appearing to our sense consciousnesses. And our mental consciousness, and our mental consciousness is then apprehending and creating a generic image that the self-grasping ignorance believes has an aspect, when the generic image of an object is made, has an aspect of intrinsic existence that it doesn't, that is superimposed onto this generic image that you're thinking about. So you're taking in data and it's appearing incorrectly, and you're deciding that that appearance is fine, and then you're deciding that everything intrinsically exists. But when you subject everything to ultimate analysis to see if of the mode of existence tallies with the mode of appearance and the mode of apprehension, if the mode of existence tallies, if the basis of designation and the designated object are compatible, when we go to look and see about all of that, we'll come to find out it's not true. We'll come to find out that the basis of designation, this thing over there, the parts over there that I'm saying are a heater, when I move closest to the parts over there that I'm seeing are a heater, I can't find a heater. And when I move closer to the leg, I say, okay, it's made of parts. I can't even find a leg when I move closer to it and subject it to ultimate analysis. I find atoms, I find protons, I find neutrons, I find stuff science says you find. I don't even know what any of that means. But I know I find a bunch of parts, and there's smaller and smaller and smaller ones. And when I find those smaller and smaller and smaller ones, then I don't find the object that's designated. And it doesn't make sense because it should just jump out from over there and say stove. It shouldn't require me to make up this concept or make up this idea around it in order for it to exist from its own side. It should just have a sign on it almost that's screaming at me stove, but it doesn't. So when we subject everything in the universe, eyes, yous, phenomena other than persons, to ultimate analysis, we'll come to find out that our natural mode of being is in disharmony with actual reality. And this is what the Buddha said we have to do again and again and again. Apply this non-affirming negative, this not intrinsically existent, over and over and over to our mind, and then come out of ultimate analysis and harmonize the existence of everything with the experience that just happened. And by looking back on the experience that just happened and seeing that there's an unfindability of this intrinsic existence, then a harmony has to take place, because once again, papers have words on them that you can read and cups have stuff in them that you can drink. So there must be a mode of existence that's working, that isn't existing from the side of the object. And the conclusion comes that it must be mere imputation. It must be coming from the side of the subject somehow, and somehow then believing it to be like something that it's not. So for instance, Geshe Dorji Damdul today in class was talking about Arya Deva's 400 verses and talking about one person, an attractive person. Someone sees that attractive person as lustful, someone to lust after. And then a yogi who meditates sees that attractive person as a bag of shit, a bag of feces. It says that. Sorry, it's crude. It says the yogi sees that attractive person, the lustful person sees as attractive as a bag of feces. Because really, we're a bag, skin, and we're just a bag of feces. And then a tiger sees it as a great meal. So Geshe Dorji Damdul taught this today. If that basis of designation, that for me, attractive, right? Right? Because I'm not a yogi or a tiger. For me, attractive. If that basis of designation was intrinsically just that, a yogi wouldn't see a bag of shit and a tiger wouldn't see a nice meal. Everyone would agree, that's attractive. I lust after that. This is the meaning of emptiness. That subjectively we are making this up. And it's making us really sad over and over and over again. If it wasn't making us sad, keep making it up. But unfortunately, this superimposition of true existence that we believe about everything in our universe causes us then to superimpose values on things that make us upset, make us mad, make us attached, because we think these things have intrinsically good or intrinsically bad qualities, because we believe they intrinsically exist and we believe they were intrinsically produced. And Arya Nagarjuna is so kind to show us they are not intrinsically produced. They do not intrinsically exist. Emptiness is the meaning of dependent origination. Dependent origination is the middle way. Emptiness is the middle way. We have to be able to see that emptiness is the short for empty of independent existence, which means that nothing exists independently, which means that everything exists dependently, which means everything is dependent origination. Dependent origination is the middle way, therefore emptiness is the middle way, because emptiness means empty of independent existence. If something is empty of independent existence, it means it's dependent. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way, saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, no mind, dhatu, no dhatu, dharmas, no mind, conscious, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana, all the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita, fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangate buddhi soha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva's Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught. And all the Tathagatas were rejoiced. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. So if there's no intrinsically existent delicious meal, or an intrinsically existent bag of filth, or an intrinsically existent attractive person, then it makes it possible for there to be different subjective perspectives depending on the sphere one is coming from, to make it a valid perception, to make that same basis of designation to be credibly a meal, credibly a bag of filth, and credibly an attractive thing, person, based on the sphere or the subject who is validly cognizing it, based on their discrimination. And if it had intrinsic existence, there couldn't be these spheres of different perspectives. The animals, the yogis, and the normal, persons. There couldn't be these different perspectives. And that perspective couldn't change. So you couldn't even decide tomorrow that that's not attractive to you anymore. Yeah, but you do. But you do. Kala jube ne jodan ba ne ngu she du ju nga yi du do jen ju ba bo lama yi bu shen zi ne zung ga zho so la sha zi lo aga samara ja san tra samara be ga samara chan tra samara aga samara ja san tra samara Agha samara ja chandara samara ya be te ata gate para sangate badi zo baba gonja sunji gai de me doji she doji me doji she doji dagi baji me do be danji je den gori zo ha gerin jon ja je she wada me do ne be jon dan wa don ba don jin bon zo zo je da ji de jon den da de le show. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lama's eye, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love. And let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje jadan zaji janan la janjo badu dani jazuji dagi ji jibe zonanji dola benje zanje duba sho sanje jadan zaji janan la janjo badu dani jazuji dagi ji jibe zonanji dola che sanje duba sho sanje jadan zaji janan la janjo badu dani jazuji dagi ji jibe zonanji dola benje zanje duba sho. And in English, I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha by my accumulations, by the merit I accumulate by teaching the Dharma, by my accumulations, such as teaching the Dharma, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So that's the meaning of that verse that I just said. Okay, so let's read the foundation of all good qualities and then we'll get right into the teaching. There's not a lot of time left, but I just really appreciate all of you listening, and I try to share as many tips as I can based on all the years that I've been studying and the great things my teachers have told me. And I hope that it's helpful to you, because my teachers were very generous with these teachings to me. Um, and they never asked for anything but for me to practice them. And the greatest offering that I can give is practicing them. And my teacher, Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, before he passed away, asked me to continue these Lamrim teachings. So this is the reason why I'm here presenting them to you this evening. We spent more than 20 years together, Rinpoche and I, and it would be wrong if I didn't try to give you a little bit of the nectar that he gave to me so freely, especially after he asked me to do so. So, um, hold on. I have to prove I'm not a robot. Okay. I guess that does it. Robots can't move puzzle pieces into one another. It's, I guess, a big deal for a robot. Like, they can do all kinds of stuff, but when it comes to moving a puzzle piece together, whew, forget about it. Okay, you ready, everybody? Cool. The Source of All My Good by Lama Tsongkhapa. Again, this is a 14 stanza poem that encompasses everything in the Great Treatise of the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment and the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Tantric Path to Enlightenment. It shows us how to go from a person who's of small capacity all the way to the final completion stage of highest yoga tantra. This is a very unique text because in 14 stanzas it does this, and Pabonka Rinpoche says that we see four sections. One section showing how to find a Lama, what kind of Lama to find, how to rely upon thought, and how to rely upon them in action, and then what to do. The second category, once you've found a teacher, and then the third category, a prayer to remove obstacles and to be able to remain with good people in this life, and then the fourth category, in all your lives, to never separate from lamas and to be able to complete all the stages and grounds and paths and so forth, so that I can become Vajradhara, become a Buddha. So it's incredible that all of this shows us what to do, and we just have to do it. The foundation of all good qualities, the source of all my good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to them in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow them with all my strength and reverence. Yunten Gunji Shedra Jinchinje, Sushin Demba, Lanji Sao, Lepa Tone, Pepa Doma Yi, Kupa Chemba Demba Jinji Lo. Bless me to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. Lenchi nyepi dewe denzong de, shintu nyeka dunshen shejune, nyinsen kunto nyimpo lenbi lo, junshe mepa jewa jinji lo. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Lu so yo wa ju yi ju bo xin, yu du ji bi ji wa jin dan dan, xi wei jie su lu dan ji ma xin, gan na le je ji xin zhang hua la. Nye ba den bo nye bi so, dra xin dra wa nan ja bon wa dan, ge zu da da dru ba je ba la, da du ba da den ba jin ji lo. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They can't be trusted. They're the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Jebe me ngon dugye gonji go, yiden mi ron zibi bonzo ji, nye mi ri ne tarpi dewa la, donye jembo jewa jinji lo. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teaching. Nanda Zamba Dei Dambai Dendan Jejin Bayu Jembui Dembi Zawa Susu Taba La Drupa Nyimbu Jeba Jinji Lo. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see every living being, every one of my own mother has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Rani zizo longwa jijin do majo drowa gonjan de drawa done drowa true gojo e janju zenjo jumba jinji lo. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I can't become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva's vows. Senzan je jan su jin nan su la, gompa mena, janju midro ba, leba done jise domba la, sumba drabu loba jinji lo. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Lubi yu la yingwa shi je xin, yang da dun la su xin je ba yi, xin ne la tong zun du je wei la, nyo du ju la je wa jin ji lo. Grant that once I've practiced well the past shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Tumulanjan nudu jabana te pagonji jojo doje te. Yesanji bujungu danba de la nidu juba jinjilo. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then always to keep them, even if it costs my life. Detse ngudru nani drubiji, nanda danzi domba zonwa la, juma mimbi nyepa nyenju ne, sudan du de zonwa jinjilo. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times, highest that there is. Dene ju de nyimbo rimne ji, ne nam ji shenda ne zomba yi. Tunji ni jo jo le nga ye wa don be zon jin ru ba jin ji lo. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop and now, stop and end forever. De da lang zan dun bi zhen yin dan zu jin dru bi dron nam sha den jin shi dan nang gi ba du ju bi zo nye wa ji wa jin ji lo du zo. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Jewa gondo yanda lama dan dreme juji bella lon jujing sada lanji yunten rason ne dorje changi gopan yodu sho. Okay. I thought it'd be nice to recite the Tibetan also. I have the transmission many, 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 many times of this great text from many great lamas. Really fortunate to have His Holiness the Dalai Lama's transmission and Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche's transmission and other teachers' transmissions of this text as well. And now we're talking about aspiring bodhicitta. And we were talking about aspiring bodhicitta last week and the week before that and the year before that. And so forth, the central pillar of the Mahayana and how to actually get it, not how to talk about it or how it'd be neat or like it's a neat, cool word, bodhicitta. It's a cool word, just like Dharma Dhatu. Again, Jeffrey Hopkins was joking on the video the other day about how we like to say certain words. It's virtuous, it's wonderful. But if we don't really know what they mean, we just kind of like saying them and using them in public. And oh, this mind of bodhicitta, it's not really what it is meant for. The teaching the Buddha gave wasn't meant so that we could show off. It was meant so that we could change our minds radically, radically change our minds to the point that it talks about in this great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, right at the beginning of this chapter. It says something that's just so wild and out there compared to the way that I normally go about my day and others normally go about their day, that it's mind blowing. It's just so radical, this idea that, hey, if I put your needs before mine, I'll be the happiest person. That's radical. That's not normal. And it seems like it's an easier thing to swallow with the 7 point cause and effect of realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment unless you've actually meditated on the 7 point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment a lot. And when you meditate on that a lot, the entailment of what the conclusions or the consequences of the things you realize are the same thing that it's talking about right here. And if you're finding this teaching to be so different than the 7 point cause and effect teaching, it doesn't mean that it is. It just means that one hasn't meditated deeply enough to recognize it. I remember my saying to Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche one time, why is it that we have to learn all these tenet systems, all these wrong ideas, all these things that aren't really useful because I'm learning the things that are actually the right tenets, that are actually the Prasangika view. And he said, oh, no, 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 no. These aren't other people's tenets. You just haven't meditated enough to come to these conclusions. You don't have enough virtue. You haven't meditated enough to conclude the things that these great philosophers have concluded that is actually not correct. But you haven't gone deep enough into your mind to see that these things that aren't correct are sitting in there that need to be uprooted. So these other tenet holders are actually you, Jeff. You just haven't done enough practice to know it. Yeah. So when I don't see how the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice is the same thing as the 7 point cause and effect, it means that I haven't meditated enough deeply on the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, passed down from Lord Maitreya to Arya Sangha and so forth, down through Lama Tsongkhapa and Lama Atisha and the extensive deeds lineage. I haven't meditated deeply enough if I see some incompatibility with Bodhisattva Shantideva's presentation of the mind training, equalizing and exchanging self with others. So when we look at the Lam Rinpoche, we get into this section, chapter 4, in this second volume. The Lam Rinpoche Translation Committee, so kind to us. So many scholars were so kind. Josh Cutler and then the other editor, Guy Newland, was so fortunate that they worked on this book along with, I mean, the names you just see. Jose Ignacio Capizan, thank you very much. Daniel Kozord, thank you very much. Joshua Cutler, thank you very much. Natalie Hoffman, thank you very much. Roger Jackson, thank you very much. Karen Lang, thank you very much. Donald S. Lopez Jr., thank you very much. John McCransky, thank you very much. Elizabeth Napper, thank you very much. Guy Newland, thank you very much. John Newman, thank you very much. Gar Sparham, thank you very much. Alan Wallace, thank you very much. Joe Wilson, thank you very much. Editor-in-Chief Joshua Cutler, thank you very much. And Editor Guy Newland, thank you very much. We see dependent origination. All of these great scholars came together so that we can just breeze through this book, this 800-page book in Tibetan. We can just read because of the kindness of translators. And I just really, really in your mind think, may these translators, as Tony Spina said the other night at the Tibet Center, have long lives, have happiness, have everything they've ever wanted, because they're giving us everything that we need by translating the exact precise steps that Lama Tsongkhapa says that we need to do in order to become enlightened. And again, if we want enlightenment, we need the exact causes for it. And this book, I think, is the greatest piece of literature ever presented to mankind. It's really good. The training based on the teachings of the conqueror's child, Bodhisattva Shantideva. So we just got done reading the entire Bodhicharyavatara as a transmission and as a blessing to be able to give us some courage, some juice to be able to go through this complex teaching. So we've gotten that blessing. And then Lama Tsongkhapa's outline reads as follows: contemplating the benefits of exchanging self with others and the faults of not exchanging self with others. Number 2, the ability to exchange self and others if you accustom yourself to the thought of doing so. And number 3, the stages of meditating on how to exchange self and other. And then there's a heading, the measure of whether or not you did it. Did you produce bodhicitta or not? What's the measure? How do you know if it happened or not after you've meditated on this? Okay, so contemplating the benefits of exchanging self and others and the faults of not exchanging self with others. Lama Tsongkhapa opens up immediately with a quote from, I believe, the 8th chapter. Let's double check. I don't want to give you wrong information. Yes, the 8th chapter, 120th verse of the Bodhicharyavatara. And he opens up with this radical statement from Bodhisattva Shantideva, which is like, whoa, that can't be true. Whoever wishes to quickly protect self and other, so if you want to protect yourself and you want to protect others, must exchange self for other. Practice this excellent secret. So if you want to protect yourself, you have to change this idea that you have right now. Maybe you don't. I don't know. You're maybe a bodhisattva. I'm just saying you, general. I don't mean like you. I have to change right now. I currently think that the way that I protect myself is to look after these aggregates in front of you more so than looking after someone else's aggregates in front of me. So I feel that it only makes sense to protect these aggregates. And then if I can help you, that's fine. But number 1 is protecting my aggregates, and protecting your aggregates are not in my number 1. But Bodhisattva Shantideva is saying protecting your aggregates is the way I protect my aggregates. Weird. So how does that make any sense? Like, how, if it's raining and I give you an umbrella over your head, do I stay dry? We have to ask these questions. Don't be shy. How does that make sense? To protect you is protecting me. So if I jump in front of a bullet coming at you and it kills me, somehow that protects me. How does this make any sense whatsoever? This is what we have to come to find out. We have to see what this wild mind that Lord Maitreya and Arya Manjushri are both pointing at the ways to get to. This radical thought that isn't just a crazy idea, it's actually reality that I haven't discovered yet. And the ones who've discovered it that I've met, wow, they're so different. And they seem so protected and safe. Whereas I think I just have to look after these aggregates and I feel unprotected, unsafe. So there's something in there. And it's part of the meditation that we do. And we look at those who cherish others and we look at ourselves and look at the difference. And Bodhisattva Shantideva points it out. And whatever worldly joy there is arises from wishing others happiness. Wait a minute. Wait, how is it possible? I want to be happy. And the joy, it would make sense that it would arise from making me be happy. How could it arise from wanting you to be happy? How would that make me happy? We had to figure that out. Whatever worldly suffering there is arises from wishing for your own happiness. So how is it saying, like, wait a minute, if I like put the umbrella over my head and it's raining and don't put it over your head, how am I going to be and then I change that idea and I put the umbrella over your head, how am I going to be happy all wet? What need is there is so this is what the Buddhas are saying they've discovered is true. See how strong self-cherishing is. I'm teaching this and I'm coming up with doubts. Well, what do you mean? If I cherish you more than myself, that's the way I can become happy. If I put the umbrella over your head, that's the way I can be dry? Oh, so you're saying that being wet's happy? Why would I put the umbrella over your head then? Wouldn't I want you to be wet? Because you see, this requires a lot of analysis and a lot of reasoning and a lot of logic to conclude this within your mind. Not to think it's maybe neat, to conclude it as a way of living. What need is there to say more? Look at the difference between these two. Ordinary persons act for their own welfare. I act for my own welfare. The sage acts for others' welfare. The Buddha acts for others' welfare. If you do not genuinely exchange your own happiness for others' suffering, you will not achieve Buddhahood. And even in cyclic existence, you're not going to have joy. Wow. So this is saying like, hey, this practice will even make you happier in this life. Hey, the great vehicle is about, Lord Atisha says it doesn't really become Dharma until it's throwing away this life and it's about future life. But hey, the great scope, the supreme vehicle is here talking about, hey, the benefits of doing this in this life as well. You're going to feel better. And we've got to find out if it's true or not. We can't just believe this blindly. This is what the Buddha told us not to do. The Buddha said, take my teachings as if there's a lot of teachings out there and you're not sure which one's true and which one's not. Which one's gold and which one's mud. Just like you went to a place where they were selling fake gold and they had gold, there was gold on the outside with mud in the inside. It'd probably be good to find out if you are in the business of selling gold, which one was the real gold when you go to the market. And the Buddha said this is how you should approach your spirituality. You should check it and make sure it's true, not just because the Buddha said it, because that when you analyze what you heard, the wisdom arisen from hearing, and then you get the wisdom arisen from analysis. When you analyze what you've heard, it should be discovered by you to be accurately logical. And once it is, meditate on it. Have the wisdom arisen from meditation. Thank you. That's my talk for this evening. Let's do some dedication and let's get out of here. And then let's every single moment from this forward, when we look at the commentaries on this, it says each of these stanzas have an idea. Bless me to see this, bless me to see that. Let's all make the aspiration from this place we are, sitting on the cushion or sitting in your chair or laying in your bed or whatever you're doing, washing your dishes or listening to the news while you're listening to me or doing something like playing a video game, whatever it is that you're doing. Uh, I lost my track. Sorry. So, may we um, from this moment forward try to make sure that our mind is engaged with the Dharma from this cushion, from where we're sitting and doing what we're doing. Let's try to just stop for a second and say, may my mind begin to work exactly the way these stanzas say my mind should work if I want to not suffer and be happy. May I, from this cushion, from right here where I'm sitting until I'm a Buddha, may I not forget that these stanzas are how I want my mind to work. And this is what this is for. This is to try to make our minds work more like the ideas in the Lam Rinpoche and less like the delusional ideas that say, hey, impermanent things are permanent. Oh, disgusting, suffering things are happy. Oh, disgusting things are clean. And oh, selfless things have a self. We have these ideas that are all so wrong that have to be undone. And these stanzas are what our mind would look like if those wrong ideas were undone. Okay. What are we doing? We're dedicating. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by the mantra of Vajrasattva. Om Benzo Sata Zamayamani Balaya Benzo Sata Zeno Vajra Dida Meva Zulukaya Meva Zubukaya Meva Anuratu Meva Sava Zidi Mebrayacha Sava Gama Suchi Me Kitam Shiyam Guru Maha Bhagavan Sava Tata Gata Benza Mame Moga Benza Baba Maha Samaya Sava Om Ve Jorama 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 Junjagala Rajama Rama Jadaja Junjarulu Om Jo Om. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. Through this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead every single sentient being without exception into that enlightened state. In all my lives, may I never separate from my perfect gurus. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path and reach then quickly the place where I become myself the one who holds the diamond from my two collections, vast as space that I've amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time. May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Jambel Bawa Jeta Jamba Dan Gonju Zambo de Ande Jende Deda Gonji Jesu Dala Jegewa Deda Danje Radungo Duzam Jebi Jewa Danje Jingo Wagan La Jodunga Bade Dajenge We Tsawa de Gonjan Zambo Jeje Radungo Waji Shanje Zenja Rimbo Je Maje Banam Je Joji Je Banyamba Me Bayangone Gondu Belwa Kewa de Nyodu Da Lama Zanje Drujone Droa Jinja Maluba De Izala Gobar Jo Jewa Gondo Yanda Lama Dandame Juji Bella Lonju Jin Zadan Lanji Yunden Razone Dorji Jangi Goban Yodu Jo de ni rindu bele zo ni ke dayam bagan ji zabade ro mi mari don ro wa nam nan yen ye we wam bo da yo yi. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, you are the source of all hope and happiness for beings all powerful. Chen Reze, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Rari Rawe Goe Shinyan Diben Nande Wamalu Jongwe Ne Chen Rezi Wan Tenzin Yatso Yi Shabezi de Badu Den Yori. Prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, my root guru. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om, 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Lord Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to please continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hand. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everybody, for your compassionate, nice listening. I really appreciate it. And remember that this information that we're learning about is very heavy. This mind of bodhicitta is a humongous mind that we're talking about. This idea of cherishing others more than yourself is not something that you can just go about right away doing or understand really what it means until you've studied it for a long time. Arya Nagarjuna says that the bodhisattva would give his or her eye, but we should begin by giving vegetables. Don't go beyond your capacity. Wait until you've realized these things more and more and more to decide whether or not it even makes sense. Because a lot of people will learn about these teachings and then just throw themselves into kind of social work type activities and have what's called compassion burnout because they weren't prepared. I've had this happen in my own case. I wasn't prepared to actually have a strong enough mind to export the happiness that I was trying to export because I hadn't realized the things necessary to have something to really offer. So study well, analyze these teachings, and then put them into practice once they make sense in an incontrovertible way to you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day or great night wherever you are in the world.